We're going to jump deeper into UFC 264, McGregor, Poirier, the trilogy. The fight is tonight. Of course, you can only watch on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. And joining us right now, live from Las Vegas, to get more into the fights tonight, he is Marc Raimondi, ESPN MMA reporter, live from Vegas. And he joins us now right here on 97.3 ESPN. Marc, how you doing today?
I'm good, Josh. Good morning. Well, I guess good morning for me. Good afternoon for you.
Yeah, you're the second person I've talked to today out in Vegas, so I know the time difference is definitely an interesting dynamic, but I always do appreciate you jumping on. First of all, before we get any of the details, I feel like there's like 100 storylines when it comes to this card today with McGregor and Poirier, and I feel like everyone is kind of like run down the road with their favorite ism or storyline or aspect of the fight. What is your favorite aspect or storyline of this fight tonight?
Wow, that's actually a great question, and to your point, I totally agree. I think this fight kind of checks all the boxes. It has all of the things that, when you think about prize fighting and combat sports and, a spectacle of those things from, a grudge to storylines you mentioned to just the enormous stakes. And I think the one that stands out to me is really just the stakes of this fight, really for both men. I really feel like it doesn't happen often where one fight could be the biggest fight of the careers of two people. And I really do think this is possible tonight with McGregor and Poirier. I really think it's a pivotal moment in both their careers, and that just doesn't happen every Saturday. So this is a special fight, and the winner, of course, will fight, next for the UFC lightweight title, which is huge in and of itself, but it's really more than that. It's more of a career-defining fight. Dustin Poirier can beat Conor McGregor 2 times in, a span of 6 months. What an incredible feather in the cap for Poirier for his career. I would argue that it's almost as big as winning the UFC title because, if we're being honest, there are more eyes on a McGregor fight than there would be a, Charles Oliveira fight, for instance. So I think it's just an enormous fight for Poirier. And then it's, for McGregor, it's so fascinating. Where does he go next, win or lose? If he wins, of course, he gets a title fight. If he loses, then what happens? He's the biggest star the UFC has ever known, and he's facing possibly 2 losses in a row to the same guy. And, what's next for him? He's almost out of the title picture if he loses for the first time really almost in his entire UFC career. It's just so fascinating and so compelling. Talk about big fights, the big fight feel. It is here in Las Vegas tonight.
Just to dig a little deeper on McGregor, I was talking with someone I know. They've covered boxing for a long time, and looking at McGregor, there's a part of me that looks at him and almost feels like there's a little bit of his career that mirrors Mike Tyson, and that McGregor and Tyson, they burst on the scene. They were knocking out people. They're just these superstars. And then their lives obviously went, in different ways for different reasons. Obviously Tyson went to jail. McGregor didn't go to jail. But the point is that McGregor had things going on in his life. He wanted to go pursue boxing and everything. And he's come back and he just doesn't seem like he's 100% the same guy in the same way that Tyson, when he came back, he wasn't the same guy. So do you think that McGregor can do what Tyson was unable to do, which is find that old McGregor again?
And then that is one of the biggest questions coming into the fight. And I think the comparison is super interesting. And I think that really is, there are definitely things that ring true about, the McGregor career trajectory, the Mike Tyson career trajectory. And that, when you make it to that level of combat sports and prize fighting, it's just a crazy thing because it's not like a team sport where you're going to win the NBA Finals or you're going to win, the World Series. It's really just you out there. And what those two guys were able to do early in their careers, the historic rises, the incredible, the incredible attention they were getting. They were both must-watch people. Their fights. Everyone wanted to see Tyson knock somebody out. Everyone wanted to see Conor knock somebody out. And I think it's it can mess with you. It can really mess with you when you get to that level so quickly in your life and in your career. And for Conor, it's at 32 years old now, he's someone who has 3 kids. He's a much different man than he was even in 2015, 2016 when he was at the height of this UFC run. And man, it's what's interesting about this fight too is that Dustin Poirier was one of the first big fights that he had in 2014. He knocked out Dustin Poirier, and now here he is trying to fend off Dustin Poirier in an incredibly pivotal moment in his career. Can he get back that momentum? Can he return to the top? Conor McGregor is the most bankable star in UFC history, the most popular by far. Can he still become one of the greatest fighters of all time? It's still possible. No one has won the lightweight title twice. And if he does that, he'll definitely put himself in the history books once again. But, is he one of the best of all time, or is he just one of the richest of all time? That's one of the questions on the line tonight.
Marc Raimondi joining us here on Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN. McGregor Poirier 3 is tonight on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. You can follow Marc for all of your MMA coverage at Marc_Raimondi on Twitter. Marc, let's flip the script over to Dustin. Obviously, biggest moment of Dustin's career was beating Conor McGregor earlier this year. But it seems like that Poirier at this point is kind of like in the peak. He's kind of like in that groove of his prime. And tonight it feels like he's in a position to not just beat McGregor, but he's in a position to almost steal some of McGregor's spotlight in a way that he couldn't even do months ago because that was in Abu Dhabi. This is in Vegas. This is a sold-out crowd. This is post-pandemic, quote-unquote, environment. So to me, there's something on the line tonight for Poirier that's more than just beating McGregor. It's doing it on a stage that he wasn't even on before 6 months ago.
There's no doubt. I really do believe there is a lot of truth to that, and it's a weird dynamic here because Conor McGregor is obviously the fan favorite, of course. I mean, he's again the most popular fighter in the history of the sport, and he's the one getting cheered this week, and Dustin Poirier is getting booed, which is such a strange thing because Dustin Poirier is objectively speaking, Josh, one of the nicest and best people in the sport of MMA. And this is a guy that, he's a family man. This is a guy that has, the Good Fight Foundation, which he gives back regularly hundreds of thousands of dollars to the youth in Louisiana communities where he's from. I mean, this is a legitimately good dude, and he's the one getting booed. And to your point, to your question, I think that if he's able to beat McGregor again, especially in spectacular fashion, I do think that he will get a lot more people on board, and he will become a much bigger star in the future. It's again another case of a career-defining moment in this fight. It's really true. Poirier has a really major chance to become a much bigger star tonight.
I wanted to ask you a couple other things aside from McGregor and Poirier tonight, because UFC 264 is more than that. The co-main event is so huge to me, Marc, because Stephen Thompson, Gilbert Burns, these are two guys who have previously fought for the title. They're both trying to get their way back. And I'm looking at the Vegas lines and the lines across the country. Gilbert Burns is an underdog almost on every sports book. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe Gilbert Burns should be an underdog because I feel like Stephen Thompson is not in his prime. I think Burns is in his prime. And I think this fight tonight is a situation where I think Burns has a chance to really put a staple out there and be like, hey, Usman may have beaten me, but I'm still one of the best in this weight class. And I feel like he can look at Stephen Thompson in a situation where he can say, hey, you may be a favorite, but I'm still the number one contender.
You make a good point. I do think Burns might be getting slept on just a little bit in this fight. And I think really what it is Wonder Boy is such a tough puzzle to crack. He really is his style is unlike anything else, and it's very hard to replicate. And I know Gilbert Burns brought in Raymond Daniels for his training camp, which I think is a brilliant move because that karate style, you really need to know the kind of attack and the kind of defense that Wonder Boy has. And I think the reason why he's a favorite is because he has that striking style that's very hard to get close to. He really keeps his distance beautifully. And let's not forget, Gilbert Burns was a lightweight. He's a smaller welterweight. He's going to be much shorter, and Wonder Boy is going to have a height and reach advantage, which for someone like Wonder Boy, who uses his distance and his length so well, that is a pretty big advantage. So I do understand why the odds are the way they are. And then to your point, Wonder Boy's 38 years old. He's Wonder Man. He's not Wonder Boy anymore. He's 38 years old. But I still think that until we see the crack in the armor as far as that, incredible striking. I mean, this is the guy that pieced up, Jorge Masvidal. He beat Gilbert Burns' best friend, Vicente Luque, with that striking. You know, Luque is a tremendous striker. He just beat Jeff Neal, who's one of the best up-and-coming guys in the welterweight division. I do think there's more left in the tank for Wonder Boy, and he's just such a tough style matchup for really anybody. And I think he would be for Kamaru Usman, too, if they ever fought.
What is your favorite fight on this card tonight that is not the main or co-main event, and why?
That's usually a hard question because there's always so many interesting fights. But tonight, I really feel like the Michel Pereira versus Nico Price fight. I really, I'm a firm believer in that fight because, I mean, just simply they're two of the most entertaining men in the UFC right now. Nico Price is one of the most creative finishers in the sport. This is a guy that has knocked people out with hammer fists from the bottom. Hammer fists from bottom position where he used his foot to frame a man's face and then smashed it in with his fist. I mean, that no one does that, and Nico Price did that and finished the fight that way. And Michel Pereira is must watch. He is he's a supernova of movement in there. This is a guy that he did a flip off the scale at weigh-ins yesterday here in Vegas. I mean, this is a guy that you never know what he's going to do. He does flips inside the cage. He does flips off the cage. Just an incredible entertainer, and both of these guys are violent, and they knock people out. And I can't imagine any other scenario where this is not an incredible fight, Price versus Pereira.
And that's technically the co-main event of the prelims, which you can watch tonight.
Correct.
As well on ESPN. Mark, before I let you go, always appreciate the conversation and the insights. I gotta ask your opinion. One of my picks for the fights tonight is I am guaranteeing the audience that McGregor and Poirier will finish by knockout or TKO. What do you think?
It's a pretty good bet. I mean, what I've been thinking about a lot this week is, what does the fight look like? I try to envision the fight, before it happens, and I'm having a hard time envisioning the fight going 5 rounds. Really, I mean, I really don't. I mean, look at the first 2 fights. I mean, if history is any indication, McGregor finished in the first round in 2014. Poirier finished in the second round just a few months ago in January. McGregor has had cardio issues, and Poirier usually gets better as the fight goes on. So if the fight goes deep, you have to like Poirier's chances of finishing. I mean, he has several late finishes in his UFC career, including over guys like Justin Gaethje, another tremendous lightweight. Whereas Conor is one of the most dangerous guys in the sport early in the fight, in the first round, in the first half of the second round. He can knock anybody out. So it does stand to reason that it's going to be very hard for this fight to go the whole way, the whole 25 minutes.
He is Marc Raimondi. Follow him on Twitter at Marc_Raimondi, ESPN MMA reporter. Of course, you can check out all of his work over at ESPN.com. And he was gracious enough to join us live from Vegas, where it's still the morning over there, here on 97.3 ESPN. Marc, always great insights. Keep up the great work, my man.
Appreciate it, Josh.